Come, I say come, brothers and sisters, come. Let we build a nation together. Let us transform Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique together. I want to welcome you to the Dynamic Hour. We are off to a late start this morning because I was trying to get some materials, and it was difficult because this program is all about laying a solid foundation for reasoning, for a meaningful engagement, and putting facts, putting information on the table is key. So you can have that dialogue among your colleagues, your friends, your workmates, and so on. I want to encourage those who are on Facebook and YouTube, please share the live. Those on the radio, tell a friend the frequency so they can listen to Vibes 101.3 and 106.3 FM. I want to get straight into it this morning. I want to start off by saying some people forget what the situation was before the NDC came into power. They forget that period. So yes, they may focus on the now. And mind you, even during the NDC time in office, some people already forgot some of the many things that the NDC did for workers in this country. It is important that you understand and you put it in context, There are a lot of people out there who are talking. It is easy to talk. But to forget what existed under the NNP, because the NNP, they want you to forget the past. They don't want you to remember what they did to workers during the 23 years and a half. They don't. And there are some very important issues that workers were concerned about. Some very, very important issues. Regularization, the whole issue of contract workers, the issue of pension for those who retired and were not getting their pension, the issue of the dock salary, all right, the issue of increase in salaries, and we can go on and on. These were very important issues for workers during the NNP time, and they were protesting day and night for their pension, for their gratuity. And there is documented evidence of what existed under the NNP when it came to the whole issue of salaries and the protest, the amount of protest that took place in this country. Lest you forget that.
Let's go. No upgrades. No upgrades. No dark salary. No pension. No pension. Regularization. No regularization. No regularization. No upgrades.
No pension, no vote. That was the chant of President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Jude Bartholomew, and his members. Police officers locked the gates at the entrance of the ministerial complex on Tuesday as teachers made their way outside the ministerial complex, demanding salary increases ordered to them.
We won't hinder you. Yeah, but all we ask is that, no, all we ask is that there is some understanding when it comes to the security of the ministerial justice.
So what do we want to be appreciated if you just have
But how I would not know you may not be, but you have a crowd of 60. You can speak for Listen, let's have an understanding.
According to Bartholomew, this protest is to demand for social and economic justice.
For the greatest injustice that have been done to our teachers who are temporary for a long period of time. Some teachers 20 years, they're still temporary. 60 years, they're going home and they're still temporary. 15 years, 10 years, 5 years. And basically what the government of Grenada and the Ministry of Education is doing is breaking the law of the land. Because precedents have been set after 2 years in a teaching job that the teacher should be permanent.
Bartholomew says enough is enough, elaborating on some of the issues faced by teachers, including regularization of workers.
The Grenada government, the Ministry of Education, they promised regularization and upgrades by January. Come January, the Prime Minister of Grenada make the public pronouncement that by March these teachers will be upgraded and they will be regularized. January gone, February gone, March gone, April gone, May going about the business, election coming and go, and yet still these people, they have never regularized. Come election day, we voting them away. We voting them away. We don't make it joke.
Ernest Richardson is the chief trustee of the Grenada Union of Teachers.
We will be stiffer next week. We will be coming stronger because we need our teachers to be upgraded and we need our teachers to be regularized. And we're sending the message loud and clear and let them know if this thing does not happen, we're not voting for them.
Right. So folks, that was during the NNP time. Huh? Don't get confused. That was during the NNP time. The teachers matching for regularization, matching for pension, matching for doc salaries. Lest you forget that.
Workers within the public sector regularized, the government has finally made a decision which will be highlighted in the upcoming budget in a matter of days. This according to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell. The Department of Public Administration and the Ministry of Education, according to Dr. Mitchell, are putting together a program that will determine how government deals with contract workers going forward. The Prime Minister says the issue is a two-dimensional one.
There would be a template from government about these workers who are doing a good job and they are in effect permanently employed, not necessarily under the public service, but providing a service that the economy would always need. Then I think we will be able to solve that problem. So that's another activity that's been looked at seriously by the government. Department of Public Administration, the Ministry of Education, they are putting together a program for us to deal with coming to the 2022 budget.
And the issue of nurses being on contract remains a challenge. Prime Minister Mitchell says it is because of the situation confronting government.
What you have is because of the situation we are confronted with, that there are a number of additional nurses that have to be employed. And in some cases, when the system at a certain limits, when these nurses were qualified, they come out of training, they would have been sitting home and we decided, look, we can take you and pay you under contract services or under grant case or some institution like this, providing a service to the country. The alternative is to say, we don't have a job for you.
The system, Dr. Mitchell says, in which they operate needs some work.
And the ability of the system to reward the hard workers and to make sure they are more secured. Because what we are doing is also preparing a system where people are disillusioned.
MTV.
Right. So that was Keith Mitchell, and I played this piece because it's important, because they never go ahead with this regularization under NNP. Not only that, the nurses were placed under this agency, Gren case, under a contract. So the majority of nurses who are on contract today, for so many years, they were brought in under the NNP on contract. The nurses on contract. So lest we forget all of this, it is easy to forget it, Easy, very easy to forget what existed under the NNP. It is very easy. And in fact, they are working overtime to have Grenadians forget what existed. The nurses protested.
Can best describe the industrial action being taken by some public servants in the healthcare system. After months of lamenting over the non-payment of increments, pension issue, imposition of contracts for nurses, victimization at workplaces and unsanitary working conditions, some workers under the banner of the Public Workers Union took action in what was termed a silent protest. This morning's action was taken, resulting in what Acting Union President Rachel Roberts described as island-wide response from union members. Workers at the Mount Gay Psychiatric Hospital and the General Hospital were seen wearing red armbands and waving placards. Acting President Rachel Roberts, speaking during a press conference held earlier this month, said more protest action can be expected to intensify in the coming months ahead.
We are saying that our members be vigilant. We are calling on our members to listen. We are calling on our members to stand together and to stand firm. Solidarity forever, and we are not going to be going back. It would be forward ever, backward never. And we would stand firm. United we are, and we shall not fall.
Colin Campbell, GBN News.
Yes, so the nurses protested against contract work, against increment, and other things like that. All right? So there are people who can easily forget what took place under the NNP. Easy, like 1, 2, 3.
Service. There should not be parallel public service running alongside the public service.
Contrary to the stance taken by NDC's political leader Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell has again hinted at the budget presentation on Friday for relief, this time concerning contract workers in the public sector.
Right, I think I played that piece already. Yeah, but it's important that you understand what was at play during the NNP time and how they treated workers. The whole issue of regularization of public officers, the method of paying for pension, and so on. It was a different ball game, the dock salaries.
In July for some teachers, as government makes good on its promise to repay salaries that were docked in 2018.
That's present. I wanted something else. I'm trying to get another piece because it's important to kind of bring on the table what the situation was during the NNP time. All right? It is so important. Unions prepare to take government. All right, good. All right. Nice. Good. Because I want to bring that to the table, right? The TAMCC workers.
Continues at the TM Marisho Community College for a third week, and students say they are feeling the effects of the actions taken by lecturers and other members of staff at TAMCC in their quest for 6 years of outstanding increments owed to them. Aduni Johnson, president of the Lecturers Association of TAMCC, in response to concerns by students who attend classes but had no lecturers to teach, said they are hoping for the matter to be resolved quickly.
From the point of view of the lecturers, we are totally concerned with the well-being of the students. I'm sure that we will make the best effort to get the students on stream, but at the same time, we have this situation 6 years pending, and there has been no resolution, more or less.
Addressing members of the media earlier today, Johnson made it clear that students' grades will not be submitted without a resolution to the ongoing dispute.
In relation to the grades are prepared. They're just not going to be handed in. In relation to the students and the courses, we have domination over the teaching learning process, and I think we're confident that if we reach a solution, we can get the students on stream once they do their due diligence.
Right, so that was TAMCC workers. And we can go on and on and on. The amount of protest, the amount of demonstration, the amount of strike actions under the NNP. Remember the work to rule when they docked the teacher's salary.
President of the Grenada Union of Teachers, Marvin Andal, accuses government of refusing to resolve the matter of teachers' docked salaries.
I regret to inform you that the Grenada Union of Teachers has been forced to intensify the work to rule industrial action. This is due to the fact that despite several talks over the past months, government has refused to resolve this matter and returned the docked salary. The union is of the view that it is in the best interest of all to have this matter resolved, and so that our education system can return to a state of normalcy.
This issue first surfaced in November of 2018, where teachers' strike action resulted in portions of their salaries being withheld. Government said the decision to dock teachers' salaries was as a result of the strike action taken to protest its offer on gratuity payment. This led to the union calling on its members to implement work-to-rule action, boycotting intercall games and other major school activities. The union says the work-to-rule continues. However, it urges teachers to carry out their duties they were contracted to do.
Grenada Union of Teachers takes this opportunity to remind its members that they should not perform duties other than those that they are contractually obligated to do during this period. For instance, organizing and managing sporting events and participating in national events on public holidays are not contractual obligations that we have as teachers. We further reiterate that all activities that take teachers out of their minimum working hours would not be engaged in during the work to rule.
Andal further encourages educators to focus heavily on teaching students and keeping them safe.
Right, so that was the environment. Remember when they docked the salaries of public officers? That was the environment under the NNP time. Some people seem to forget this thing, you know. The NDC came into power, and what did they do? What did they do?
In July for some teachers, as government makes good on its promise to repay salaries that were docked in 2018. During the new government's first post-cabinet press briefing on Tuesday, Minister for Education, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, told members of the media that $1,264,000 will be paid to teachers at the end of July. The previous administration had docked the salaries of teachers who were involved in protest action and remained away from school for nearly 2 weeks. Minister Andrew said the repayment can help to enhance the relationship between the ministry and the teachers, as well as the level of production in the classroom.
In keeping with the spirit of what the Prime Minister indicated, we believe it's not going to be productive to have an adversarial climate with our employees, with our workers. And we know that the docked salaries created a very adversarial atmosphere within our ministry and the education sector for a pretty long time, and no doubt that had cost us quite a bit. So we are happy to announce that this month end, the docked salaries to the tune of $1,264,075.78 will be paid to persons who were unduly docked their salaries.
Minister Andrew says his ministry has been working closely with the Ministry of Finance to meet the financial obligation. He explained that the refund will be administered 1 day after the processing of regular salary payments. Both payments will be disbursed by July 26th.
Normally, salaries are processed on the 21st of July each month. And so this month, July 22nd, would be an additional processing of the docked salaries. We have been reliably informed from our dedicated staff at Finance that this is happening. And so both payrolls would be sent to the respective financial institutions for disbursement by the 26th. So it's our anticipation by the 28th or so of this month those funds, the docked salaries, will be available to persons in their various accounts. We are very happy to do that, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate amicably with all of our teachers and stakeholders in education.
Right. So again, the docked salaries were paid by the NDC administration. So that was an outstanding issue. That was problem for so. During the NNP time, they took the teachers and public officers' money from their salary. The NDC came in and they paid them their dock salary. They gave them back that money that the NNP took from them. Remember, the workers were protesting for the increases. They protested, they marched, up, down, up, down. I remember Clarice Charles and all stepped in to talk about the protest.
Salary increase owed to teachers and public workers by the government of Grenada is creating quite a stir. But Grenada's ambassador to Cuba, Clarice Charles, says although she does not dispute the validity of the claims to the monies owed to the teachers, there must be some level of understanding during these times. Ambassador Charles, during the Perspectives morning show, made mention of the union's argument of government having money to purchase shares in Grenlec and not having the money to pay the increases. This, she said, is not a valid argument.
I will never stay here and say that teachers don't deserve that and more. In the same way I've been listening and I heard about you don't have about you paying imanis and you pay street wardens and you're paying somebody you can pay so you can pay me. That is not a rationale. If you are going to get your money on the backs of somebody, that I have to climb on your back and keep you down because I have to get my money, then it is immoral.
The ambassador, a former teacher and unionist, said teachers ought to look at the sustainability of their requests, saying that it is not feasible due to the longevity of it.
So let us suppose they didn't pay Grenlec, they didn't buy Grenlec, and they took that 60 million and gave it to share it out. It is not sustainable because you have to keep on with that 4% for how many years, and therefore after a time there'll be nothing. So unless you want a one-off of the 60 million.
Additionally, Ambassador Charles stated that she believes this situation needs to be looked at from another perspective. She said this should not be about party, as some are making it. Rather, it should be about government and its responsibility to protect its citizens and workers.
Right. So that was Clarice Charles. Yeah, Clarice Charles. That was NNP during the NNP time. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. You see, sometimes we forget things easily, We forget what it used to be, what the situation was under the NNP. And remember, Keith spoke. I just forgot to play that. Keith spoke about the dock salaries, the same dock salaries that the NNP paid.
If you don't work, then I don't know how I can agree to pay you. But that's the philosophy of the Prime Minister. It's different from me. So he will have to deal with that, the consequences of that. So I'm not going to impute any other motives on his part. As I said, the honeymoon is on. Give them the chance to settle down. But my position on that is well known, and I will not change it because I'm in opposition.
That was Opposition Leader Dr. Keith Mitchell, who remains unfazed by government's intent to repay teachers' dock salary, as he stands rigid with his then-government's decision made. Dr. Keith Mitchell was Prime Minister at the time when government docked the salaries of teachers who were involved in a protest action prompted by the GUT over a 2% gratuity payment offer. A letter from government was issued on the 13th of November 2018 to all permanent secretaries and head of department, informing them of the deduction. Union leaders had threatened dire consequences if the government had proceeded with its threat to dock workers' pay. The deduction comes a day after both public sector unions and the government negotiating team renewed talks on the issues of gratuity, which by all intentions was reported to be cordial. A joint release calling off the strike.
Right. So during the NNP time, it was clear. They never paid back the people their dock salaries. NDC came, they had to pay it. Then you heard the piece there with Clarice Charles regarding the increase. All right? But NDC came into power and NDC paid the increase.
800 teachers in Grenada will benefit from a 13% pay increase to be paid incrementally over the period 2023 to 2025. With government and the executive of the Grenada Union of Teachers sealing the deal on the collective agreement for salary and fringe benefits, teachers will receive 4% increase in 2023 and 2024 and 5% in 2025. Prime Minister Honorable Deacon Mitchell, who witnessed the signing on Wednesday, commended GUT's President General and his team for maintaining a cordial atmosphere that ensured teachers were well represented. He encouraged other unions to meet and negotiate with government to avoid backlogs, as was the case in the past.
I certainly always wish we can give more. And if the GDP grows, if the resources grows, then certainly the teachers and all workers have my own commitment, and I think the commitment of the government, to be as fair as we can, bearing in mind that all resources are finite. So I think the spirit in which the negotiations were conducted was critical, and I think that led to the fact that the parties could have sat around the table and negotiated and come to an agreement themselves, without having to call upon the Labour Commissioner or without having to resort to any type of industrial action. And in that sense, I want to thank and praise the GUT for showing, I think, leadership within the industrial sector as to how to go about conducting its business, encouraging the other unions to follow the example set by the Grenada Union of Teachers in coming to speedy terms with the government in concluding the negotiations. And it's important because, as was pointed out, we are moving to bi-monthly payments on the 15th of April, and we would certainly want to be in a position where all government workers, all public sector workers employed by the state can in fact benefit from the increases in their salaries almost immediately, and so that we don't have to deal with the complications and the administrative task of retroactive payments.
Deputy Chair of the government's negotiating team, Lindana Hilaire Marshall, is happy with the outcome of the process, which she says is being done to preserve a happy and healthy industrial climate.
In our view, we thought it went extremely cordial. While we would have had some frank and, discussions, we know how negotiations can be. And so we expected all of that. And we are grateful that we come to this conclusion at the end where we would be able to meet what it is that we're obligated to. And we know fully well that both sides have the same interest. We are interested in the betterment of our workers, mindful of the fact that our workers are the valued asset to be able to realize the government's transformation agenda. So we are really eternally grateful to be at this point where we can sign our agreement. And so we just want to express thank you to the Grenada Union of Teachers, and we also want to say thanks to our team, and we look forward to us continuing our cordial relationships as we keep our industrial climate safe and happy in Grenada.
The signing marks a historic moment for members of the Grenada Union of Teachers, not only being the first union to meet and settle with government, but also having an appreciation for the duration of the negotiation process. President General Jude Bartholomew said although teachers deserve a bigger increase, the union body is happy that government moved speedily to ensure the process was a success.
Historically, the Grenada Union of Teachers and other unions most of the times had to, march on the streets, go through the Labour Commissioner process, through mediation and other things for salary increase. And we note this time on record, or place on record here, is a historic moment that we should appreciate and recognize. We may not have gotten, and you'll never be able to get all that you really want and you hope to. But at the same time, when you come together and such, we come to a common understanding, and we think that we're at a very good place. And at this time, when the government of Grenada would have, paid pension, the dark salary, 23% for TAMCC who haven't been paid for a long period of time, and recognizing all the different things that the government is doing for workers. We just want to show some praise and appreciation to the Honorable Deacon Mitchell and his administration for really and truly giving us 13%, at this time, and we are grateful.
The fringe benefits in the new agreement will result in an increase in financial compensation for extracurricular work, including the marking of school-based assessment scripts.
Right. So the teachers, they sign They didn't have to protest, as Jude said there, to go on the street and protest and demonstrate and so on for that increase. No, nope. And then the Public Workers Union, they signed, the government gave them the 13% increase with all the fringe benefits.
The whole package. In my view, yes, we did not get all that we asked for, but I think this particular negotiating cycle, this particular period has been groundbreaking, right? The first thing in terms of big ticket items, I want to speak on it because it's important to celebrate our victories, small and large. This is the first fringe benefit agreement we would have had in over 10 years. That is very, very significant. I think both the employer and the unions and workers should be happy about this. Very, very importantly, and I know I was speaking to a contract worker up here, this package has in it a clause stating contract workers will get the increases, even fixed-term contract workers. This is monumental. This is groundbreaking. In the past, we have had very, very serious battles with the past administration in terms of members of our bargaining unit being left out in terms of their ability to secure increases. So having now enshrined in our agreement stating that contract workers will get it, it may have some administrative hiccups in terms of, you have a little extra work to do, but I think it's worth it in terms of the justice and the equity across the public service. So this is tremendous as far as the union is concerned. Now, there are some other items here. Nurses have been clamoring for it for an extended period of time. Free medicine at the hospital, allow our friends in the police service. I'm not going to call it the police force, the police service, the Prime Minister. Yeah.
Yes, the police is here.
Yeah. So nurses and doctors will be able to get free medicine, right? And this is something, like I stated, they have been clamoring for years. So now it has become a reality. It has come to fruition. Very, very important, and this one is very dear to me, the ex gratia. Unestablished workers are going home at times with minuscule, sometimes embarrassingly low monthly payments after they would have retired. One something, whatever it is, 300 if some are lucky. But now, the Grenada Public Workers Union have negotiated with government, and government have agreed that the minimum unestablished workers will go home with, the minimum, the bare minimum will be $500. It is a step in the right direction, right? Last but not least, I'm not going to speak about the uniform allowances and so forth. We have, should I?
No.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
All right, okay. Last but not least, very, 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 very important is the fact that this government has agreed to pay in terms of our health insurance, because we have a medical health insurance with Sagico, 55%, and the members will pay 45%. This is significant. In the past, the government used to pay 50%. They are now paying 55%. But apart from that, there were changes that had to take place with the plan, amendments to increase the schedule of benefits, and we were not getting that traction in terms of cooperation in the past. But now we have a situation, a positive situation.
Yeah, so thank God for technology. Those things are documented. Thank God for technology. All right? Uncut, unfiltered, straight in your face. So the workers thanking government. They didn't have to go in the streets and protest and fight for salary increases and for fringe benefits and all of these things. And the amount of fuss this guy talked about there, it's amazing. And this is the first time this happened, and the first time that happened all under the NDC.
Grenada has signed an agreement with the Royal Grenada Police Force and the Bank and General Workers Union for fringe benefits and salary increases for January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2025. Labour Commissioner Mrs. Parker Grenade Courtney ratified a collective agreement with the RGPF's negotiating team for fringe benefits in the second round of negotiation. The RGPF negotiating team is an amalgamation of associations representing police officers within the Gazetted Officers Association and the Police Welfare Association. In recent months, the teams signed an MOU for salary increases for the same period. Acting Police Commissioner Don McKenzie is pleased with the progress so far and anticipates the conclusion of negotiations for pay and grade for officers.
There is actually a third aspect that we as an organization look forward to, which is the pay and grade, and hopefully that can be concluded. We're optimistic that that can be concluded by year's end. I want to thank the negotiators from the government side, as well as those from the police. It is my understanding that it was an atmosphere that was quite cordial, in which both people approached that negotiation in an honest and open-minded way. Today, it has climaxed, the negotiation has climaxed with the signing of this agreement.
The Labour Commissioner also ratified a memorandum of understanding with the Bank and General Workers Union for an increase in salary and wages for agricultural workers within the bargaining unit at the Belong Propagating Station, supervisors at Mount Rule Estate, and for daily paid employees at Marybo Farm and those posted to Grambra Estate. Union President Joseph Mitchell said the signing is significant as it signals the beginning of improved conditions for the workers.
The salaries would mean a lot to the workers because, in particular, these workers they are at the lower end of the salary scale. The impact of the COVID, the escalating prices, obviously has impacted them significantly. So we are happy that we could do this today. But what we are signing actually is a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, to address or to trigger the payment of salary increases and retroactive pay. We are still working on the fringe benefit package. I must indeed commend the GNT team for its understanding in terms of the issues facing some of these workers.
Honorable Philip Telesford, who at the time spoke in his capacity as acting Prime Minister, outlined the government's position on maintaining cordial relations with union workers and employers.
These agreements are very important for a harmonious working relationship between employees and employers, and for our government and our nation to move forward, we must have a harmonious working relationship. We continue to implore upon all to speak, to negotiate, to have commonality of purpose, and this is how we will take the country forward.
Deputy Chair of the Government Negotiating Team, Lindona Hilaire Marshall, commended the teams on concluding a historic agreement.
We're happy because we've not been able to sign fringe benefits for a while, and we are extremely pleased with the government for agreeing with the request to consider fringe benefits after it not being on the table for quite a while. So I think this is a significant thing that it benefits all workers, and we look forward to continuing with the process. As Mr. Mitchell mentioned, we are still in negotiations with their union for their fringe benefits package. So we are committed to the process, and we certainly will continue to do all we can, because we often believe that we have the same interest. We are on the government negotiating side as well as the unions. Our interest really is the improvement of the working conditions of our workers.
Yes. So again, police, prison officers, teachers, public officers generally, they didn't have to go on the streets and protest and fight and, demonstrate for the increases. The government made it clear. You're getting 13% with all the fringe benefits and everything like that, and all the first this and first that and first that. So people could forget easily what existed under the NNP versus what existed under the NDC, or what we saw happen under the NDC in the last 2.5 years. Well, almost 2.5 years. It is important because, look, the whole issue of pension, that was a burning issue. The issue of regularization of workers, it was a burning issue. And we saw what took place under NNP. This is what they were proposing for pension payments.
Pension for public servants, following a court ruling, is estimated at $465 million as a one-off payment, and an additional one.
Right, so that was a lie. That was a lie. That was the numbers thrown out there by the NNP, and Keith Mitchell approximate this. This $465 million was a lie, and the annual amount required $120 million. That was a lie. So this $465 million a lie, $120 million annually is a lie. We saw only $75.1 million paid out, and all public officers got their gratuity and their pension paid. So we saw what happened.
$120 million annually. However, Dr. Mitchell confidently said payments will begin later this year.
All entitled public officers appointed by the Public Service Commission who will retire in 2022 at the legally accepted retirement age of 60 will be paid their pension during this year, 2022, when the budget.
Yes, so folks, the majority of people who needed their pension and their gratuity, they retired before 2022. They retired way before that. Some 8 years before, some 7 years before that, and they did not get their pension. But Keith Mitchell was explaining that they would pay those who retired in 2022 when they read the budget, when the budget is presented. All right? But very few workers retired in 2022. In 2023, very few workers retired during that time. So he said he was going to pay 2022 and 2023. The majority of workers retired way before that.
It's been presented for 2023. At the end of 2022, those public servants that will retire in 2023, the pension payment will be in the budget document that we will bring forth for that year. So those in 2023 will also be paid their payment, sisters and brothers. As regards to the pensions that are outstanding and are due to those who retired long before this year, we will have a phased approach for payment.
Right, so you heard that old bad-minded nastiness? Here, you heard him? As it relates to the other people who retired, the majority of people who retired and were waiting on their money, right? It would be a phased approach. So they were not certain that they're going to get their money at all. They were not certain at all about getting their money, the majority of people who retired. So I am saying people could easily forget what was the situation in the past versus what we have now. Remember the whole issue of regularization? The whole issue of regularization. That was a burning issue.
Workers within the public sector regularized, the government has finally made a decision which will be highlighted in the upcoming budget in a matter of days.
So some budget highlight. That is what the NNP was talking about. I think I played that piece already. They were just talking regularization. They were not serious about regularization at all. All right? And the NDC came into power and the NDC just regularized 404 people. 404 people were just regularized. And that's important.
Public administration has denied claims made by President of the Public Workers Union, Brian Grimes, that they are refusing to respond to queries on the status of the regularization of public workers. In an earlier report, Grimes disclosed to our news desk that they have engaged the services of a local law firm to write the Department of Public Administration, seeking answers over the delayed regularization of its members. In an exclusive interview with MTV News on Friday, Permanent Secretary at the DPA, Lindonna Hilaire Marshall, refuted the claims, stating that they have been in regular engagements with the union up until August of this year.
This year, we met with the union again in March, the 22nd, the 25th of July, and on the 15th of August. The last claim that we ignored the last letter. I would admit they did write to us on the 22nd of August after we met on the 15th of August. On the 15th of August, we explained and we went through all of the matters that was in the letter on the 22nd. So hence, in my view, there was no urgency for me to respond to the letter on the 22nd since we have already discussed the matters on the 15th. So, I did not see the need for this claim that we are not open to discussion and consultation on the matter.
She dismissed the union leader's comments as irresponsible, stating that it is a process which is done in phases, considering the vast number of individuals waiting to be regularized.
I see it as irresponsible on the part of the union, and I would say that because we've expressed the fact that regularization is a process. It is not about us taking the full 4,000 people who are unestablished and placing them onto the establishment. So we've decided to do the regularization in phases. We said 3 phases will be done. The first would take care, and we explained all of that. The first would take care of the established people, the second the unestablished, and the third, as we said.
She further highlighted the category of workers that has been regularized thus far, noting that they have already surpassed their expectations for the first phase.
So for the first phase, yes, the beginning part of it took a little more time than we expected, and that's normal. We never expect to get all our plans done exactly as we envisage it to be done. So we've targeted 300 people to be regularized in the first phase. To date, we've regularized, and I can get to the exact number. To date, we've regularized 404 positions. And if you want me to break it down, the mainstream, 211, the police, 45, the prison, 14, teachers, 117, principals, 10, and we've done 7 community nurses. So that is way past our expectations with regards to the first phase of the regularization. We've heard that if you walk into the ministries and you ask people if they're regularized, they will tell you no. Of course, the majority of people will tell you no because the first phase only catered for a minimal amount of people. Most of the people who need to be regularized are in the second and third phases. So obviously, we are not at that point yet.
Marshall disclosed that they are presently conducting the functional review exercise, which is the prerequisite for the commencement of the second phase of workers to be regularized this year.
Right. So, folks, the NDC has done a lot for workers of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. A lot. But people can easily forget all of this. Easily forget because, they want everything to be done one lick, one lash. All right? We know about the pension issue. And we know that the NDC paid the pension. The pension was paid.
I see that figure to say, you're happy for life. And I want to thank the Prime Minister because he didn't have to do it. I work with him. But I want to thank you that today I am here and I feel happy in my spirit
very happy. Thank you, thank all of you.
That was an emotional thank you by senior pensioner Bernadette Jeremiah, a former health officer thanking the government of Grenada. Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell handed her retroactive pension payment at a press conference on Wednesday afternoon. Ms. Jeremiah is among the over 500 Grenadians that are eligible to receive their pension payment in the month of November. The Prime Minister told Grenadians in July that the data coming out from the Ministry of Finance is that the retroactive payment is going to be in the region of EC $60 million. However, this has moved up to $75 million.
Now, this is no small feat. The transfer of $44 million from the state to the citizens, and eventually the projections is that as much as $75 million will be transferred from the state to the citizens, is perhaps the single largest transfer of wealth from the government to the citizens in the history of Grenada's post-independence. And so we have to appreciate that it is not just a symbolic gesture, but we are talking here fundamentally about the well-being of our citizens. If people work for 30, 40 years to build the state of Grenada, and we let them retire into poverty, it is the state of Grenada that we are doing a service.
So far, the Ministry of Finance has disbursed a total of $44.1 million to over 300 pensioners, with the remaining persons expected to receive their pension by November 30th. Tonya Adams, head of the Pension Secretariat, gave an update on the payment.
We have a number of persons from various
Yes,
ministries
so
with particular...
Tony Adams, you all did a wonderful job there. Thank you very much indeed. You did a wonderful job with the Pension Secretariat. I am simply saying, folks, some people could forget all of this and forget what existed under the NNP, because the NNP right now trying to rewrite history. They're trying to change your understanding. They want you to forget what the NNP did to workers, right? They want you to believe that the NNP was doing X, Y, and Z, and they were doing this and that good and so on. That is what they want. They want you to believe that they were perfect and they were doing everything okay. But workers really catch the hell under the NNP. Workers had it under the NNP, real struggles, real problems. And I could tell you because I was following all of this keenly over the many years. So I'm not guessing this. I know. And I stood in solidarity with the workers throughout the period. So it's well documented. So we have to remind our workers of what they've been through, what they endured under the NNP, what they survived under the NNP, and what they're enjoying under the NDC. Yes, NDC is not perfect. I agree with the GUT and its President General that the teachers should be paid and must be paid. I agree with that. And I stand in full solidarity with them. Because if you work, you ought to be paid on time. But we all agree that it's a systemic issue that must be addressed. And there seems to be a rivalry between the GUT and the Public Workers Union. And I further stated that there seems to be intentional sabotage going on when it comes to the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education, as though they dragging their feet, intentionally delaying these payments so that the teachers could be angry, get vexed, and strike and protest and so on. Because there is money. It's not like there isn't money. There's money. Government has money. They could pay. But the public officers must do their work. If you don't do your work to make sure that teachers and so on are paid, then there will be delays, then there will be problems. So it's what it is. And I'm very firm. I stand with the teachers and I stand with the GUT. You have to represent your members and you have a right to do so. And there are reasons to do so when it comes to standing up for their late salaries, at least some of them. So again, folks, I did this program this morning, and I was trying to download some stuff and look for it in the archive and so on. That is why we started off a bit late this morning, to get the facts, to put it on the table. And we need to do a nice piece, right? Nice production, looking at some of what used to happen under the NNP, document that short pieces, the protests for increases, the march and protests for regularization of workers, contract workers, the dock salaries, the pension and gratuity, and we can go on and on, all the fringe benefits and all the first this and the first that, and compare it, all the match that they had, the protest, the industrial action, all of these things. We got to do a nice piece, compare it. What used to happen before and what happened under the NDC. All right? That is important. But lastly, I want to play this piece. It's a nice interview that our beloved Prime Minister did on the Heartbeat program. It's a nice short interview on workers.
Grenville. I sat with a small retail shop speaking to the owner. And this is precisely what she was speaking about. How the fact of the bi-monthly payment has helped to improve people's cash flow and improve the little turnaround and the turning of the hand in Grenville, as a good example. In that same shop, I was speaking to a young lady, and when I asked her what she did, she said she was a quote-unquote Imani teacher. And I said to her, what's your salary? And she said, it is now $1,200 because you made it $1,200. What was that prior? $700, $800. That's a 1/3 increase. Right? And even then I said to her, you know what, if you're a teacher and you're making $1,200 and I was your student, I'd have a hard time, because I'd say to you, miss, I might have to go and hustle. I'm not so sure that I'd be prepared to work for that. And the point I'm making here is that this is what we have done to our citizens. And I'm saying we here as in governments past, by underpaying them, by masking what we call a training program for, in effect, the supply of cheap labor for a prolonged period, and disadvantage our citizens and disadvantage our economy. Because if you don't have spending power, then the economy will not grow. If people don't have money to buy things, to make things, to do things, the economy will not grow. So the fact is, this is just one of a number of steps that we're going to have to take over a long period of time to correct the bad economic policies, because that's a bad economic policy, in addition to the fact that socially, it is not social justice. It is not working justice. If you have a training program, once the training is completed, people should go into the job market and earn market rates, not drag on the training program for years and years and years to then suppress people's wage rates. And then remember, people are not going to be stuck at 19. They go from 19 to 30. They get pregnant. They start raising families, and then they're raising them on trainee salaries. Right? So these are not issues we are going to be able to solve overnight. I mean, we've taken incremental steps by addressing the minimum wage. For example, we're taking incremental steps by addressing issues like the pensions. Right? We are going to take incremental steps by ensuring that people don't have these contracts where they have these fixed terms of 1 year, and you have to constantly renew them and so on. But these things are going to take time. We are working on them. We want to make sure that the right architecture is in place, the right infrastructure is in place for the smooth transitioning. We are hoping to bring the legislation to Parliament to create the new pension plan so that it goes into effect on the 1st of October. And then going forward, it means all of the contracted employees and so on will have the opportunity to be on this pension plan, would have the job security that allows them to go to a bank and get a loan with all these 1-year contracts at the end of it. So, but we all have to manage the economy prudently. We have to manage the government's fiscal situation prudently as well, hence the reason for making sure that we understand the implications of the decisions that we are making. But I can tell you, there are many persons. If you were at the town hall in Grenville, and this is what I mean about hope, you would have heard a retired cook in a school talk about how proud she was of the fact that even though she may not have benefited from it, that her sister, brothers and sister cooks in school will now benefit from the increase in the minimum wage, right? When these persons retire, they're not on a pension scheme, right? They get $200 or $300 a month from the government. We've increased that to $500, right? Because what happens is that these people, after feeding our children for 20 and 30 years by cooking for them in schools, go out at their most vulnerable age, senior citizens,
oftentimes with significant medical bills, and then they go from whatever the minimal wage they're already earning as a cook, they then go out into the community and then they're getting $200 or $300, right? And how are they going to live on that? They then come right back to the government social programs, right? So it's a vicious cycle that we've created by not ensuring that we can at least have pension plans so that when they retire, they have their pension and that they can spend the money back into the economy, and that you don't have larger and larger numbers of people going on the government social welfare system, which again is paid for by taxpayers, right? But you see, if all you see people as is a vote, as a transaction, then you will grow such a system. Because in the end, it makes everybody in the country. It impoverishes the country, and it makes everybody dependent on the government social welfare system. And if you depend on the government social welfare system, you know what that means? You can manipulate them by saying, if you want to be on that system, you have to vote for me.
Absolutely.
Right? And that is how they've created a reservoir of votes to have kept them in power for several decades, frankly. And it's going to be a hard thing to break. But we are determined to begin to lay the foundations for making sure that we can break this over time and explain to our citizens, you're not going to become wealthy. Well, wealthy is probably too ambitious. You're not even going to be able to take care of yourselves and your family if you're on the government social safety net and welfare programs.
Exactly. So, having expressed all of this, the claim of a previous party who states that they're the champion for the poor and the workers, therefore cannot hold any water anymore.
It never held water. I think the problem, so the problem I think from a National Democratic Congress perspective is that we have not championed how this party came into being. So let me just make this clear. The National Democratic Congress was formed by people like George Brizan and Dr. Alexis because Keith Mitchell and Howard Blaze decided they were going to sack and retrench public workers.
Yep.
And on principle, they disagreed with the approach to solving the government's fiscal challenges. And that is the birth of the NDC. So the NDC is a working class, pro-working class, pro the improvement of working class, and it has always been. And if you look at all of the initiatives that we've taken since forming the government, it is all about workers. Absolutely. The pensions, the bi-monthly payment, the dock salaries from the teachers. We don't highlight it. The government has spent almost $3 or $4 million resolving that dispute with TAMCC and the lecturers and so on there.
Right.
Right. The minimum wage. Right. It is about working class people. We've increased under the seed the benefits to the elderly. We've increased the benefits to the disabled. So when you talk about disadvantaged people and quote unquote poor and vulnerable, we're the ones who've taken decisive efforts, steps, programs, and put money in their pocket. Their approach to loving the poor and vulnerable is to keep you poor and vulnerable so they can transact you for a vote.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. Right? So we have to understand that. And if we don't understand that, and you can check the history of various things that are anti-workers, right? And you'll appreciate that reality. Who've poached union leaders to come into politics so that you can then dismantle the unions and the strength of the unions? Not the National Democratic Congress.
Indeed.
Right? Who've gotten union leaders to sacrifice their principles over the altar of politics? And when they walk into a labor union, a labor day, they're being booed. Not the National Democratic Congress. So I want workers of this country to make sure they study, read, and observe the behaviors of people who tell you they care about workers and the working class. Do they come and associate with you? Do they face the fire at Labor Day and come and take the criticism or take the compliments? Do they show up in person? Do they attend your activities? People may not know that. When I joined the National Democratic Congress, I invited various union leaders to meet with me. Not one of them met. Not one of them met with me. Because either they're afraid of LNP or they're afraid of this or they're afraid of that. They didn't have the courage. Within 2 weeks of forming the government, it was union leaders who were meeting with me in the cabinet office, where we announced to them that this was no election gimmick and that we would be paying the pensions and that we intended to do so by November. And that we were paying all of the back pay. Right? So I want to say something about this. And it's important for us Grenadians to understand. We need to learn to observe. We need to pay attention. And we need to be honest with ourselves about the people who actually care about the citizens of Grenada and those who just in it for the limelight or for a vote or for mamagism or whatever it is. If there are challenges, we will come to the workers and explain the challenges. Life isn't black and white. But we have made good on our commitments to the workers. We intend to continue making good our commitments to the workers. And I will end by commending the workers because I think the workers appreciate, understand, and acknowledge that. And that's why I think we had the record time within which we were able to sign off on the respective trade union agreements for salary increases and other fringe benefits for the workers with no fanfare, no demonstration, no teachers walking up and down in the hot sun, because we were honest. We brought in a professional, experienced negotiator who understands the need to respect the other side, understands the integrity in the process in the form of Mr. Bernard Antoine. And I think that helped the process because they recognized no one was trying to trick them, no one was making public statements about the unions or their membership in terms of the demands or the ask. So I just want to re-emphasize, it is working class people who build a nation. That's all of us. Indeed. We all have to work. And we need to work honestly. We need to always try in ways to improve our skills, our technology, our productivity. And we need to also make sure that people are fairly compensated for that. And that crucially, build a system over time, because it's not a stroke of a pen, that allows workers when they retire, that they have adequate income that they can continue living on.
Yes, so that was our beloved Prime Minister there, the Most Honorable Deacon Mitchell, explaining some of the things that they've done for workers in the country and also the so-called ordinary people. You know, the NNP call them the poor and the vulnerable, and they talk about they have championed the cause for these people, but the NDC has done more for them. And I do hope that over time, with the help of people like Kijana Romain, because he's a very skillful guy when it comes to videography and production, that we can collab to do a before and after, right? You don't have to be very long, but looking at what existed, because I have the materials. I don't believe it's easy to just get these materials. I have them stored for a while, all right? I normally download and store things that I believe can be useful, not just for the now, but in the future. So I'm saying a nice little collab where you look at what was the situation under NNP for workers. Very short and precise. All right? Looking at some of the key things. And then you look at the NDC, what they did when they came into power, answering to some of the problems that existed under the NNP and how they were able to solve the problems, how they were able to fix it. I think that is very important. Very, very important indeed. So we need to do that piece comparing what existed under NNP and what the NDC was able to deliver in under 2 years and a half for workers. We must also do the same thing for the poor and vulnerable, the ordinary people. Show them what existed under the NNP, what the NNP didn't do for them, versus what the NDC did for them in 2 years and a half. And let's have that circulated on social media, on people's cell phones, everywhere you go. So a person should be able to easily go back, take this production and play it for a person and say, hey, this is the facts. You say NNP like poor people? Well, this is what NDC did for poor people. And let's talk about what you did for poor people. All right? You talk about the workers and you love the workers. Well, this is what existed under the NNP. Workers were marching in the hot sun and protesting every Monday morning. But the NDC, no, that didn't happen. In 2 years and a half, they were treated with dignity and respect. And that is why I hold true to the NDC's position. That is why I didn't side with the Ministry of Education. I side with the workers. I side with the union president, general, and the teachers. Some people may not like it, but the reality is that is what the NDC stands for workers, making sure that they are paid on time. And I know that there is sabotage taking place in those ministries. They want to destabilize the government. They want to undermine this legitimate government. They want to make them look bad, even if the government is doing all in its power to help workers, to make sure that workers are okay and that the poor and vulnerable are taken care of. So don't believe it is easy work to just play these things for you. It's not like everybody have these things and they could just play these clips and play these videos and so on. You have to download them. You have to edit them. You have to, there's a lot of work to be done. And you have to work in the mind, understand what you want to present, how you want the show to go this morning. So while we started off late, because sometimes those downloads will take a while, at the end of the day, I wanted to show you what existed under the NNP for workers, the climate, the situation for workers then, and what the NDC did when they came into power just under 2 years and a half. How workers have benefited tremendously under the NDC administration. Folks, I want to thank you for being a part of the program. I want to wish you all the best. We will continue tonight, God's willing, in the hub. Our beloved Prime Minister will be addressing, having a press conference. I wanted to say addressing the nation, but no. He will be doing a press conference, a presser today at 11 a.m., speaking about a range of things, putting in things. So you should tune in. I want to assume that not only GIS would bring it, but other platforms, other medium will carry that press conference at 11 a.m. today, this morning. All right, this morning. I want to say to you also, roadwork is on. All right, people are working. Christmas is not far away. And this year, the government intends to do more fortnights. So they start off a bit earlier. All right, more fortnights. So you're looking at October, right? So October, I think October is 1, and then October 1 into November, then you have about 3 or 4. It's a good amount tonight. I can't tell you if it's 6 or 7 or 8 fortnights, but it's a good amount of fortnights being rolled out by this administration. You're not hearing NNP talking about that at all. All right? You're not talking about it because they have always made bacchanal and confusion about roadwork. Roadwork is their thing. When they talk about roadwork and the Imani trainees and the poor and the vulnerable, that is what the NNP always talk about because they want to keep you poor and they want to keep you vulnerable. So roadwork is out. People are getting their little fortnight. They're getting their little contract. They're getting their little supervisor work and so on. And I love that. I really do. So things are happening. Things are happening. And the NDC continues to deliver. The NDC continues to do a lot of things here in Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique for our people. But we must document it. We must produce short videos, produce stuff, highlighting. Because you see, a person will not do like me. They will not go back and listen to those things many, many years ago. In fact, even on GIS page, you don't see plenty of people viewing the page. When you look at the video and you look at the views, not plenty of people view, but the content is great. Good things are happening with GIS. They're doing far better than before, I must admit. And kudos to Jason Phillip and the team there, the workers within GIS, not just the leadership, but the entire team. Because all they need is somebody to motivate them. And I think Jason brings that in that particular area. He's a motivator. He's a guy who's going to encourage them to get the thing done. So again, I want to thank you for being a part of the program. Remember that this program is paid for by people just like you. The little that you give to supporting this program, it goes a long way. If you want to give, you can. The number that's scrolling at the bottom of the live program, you can WhatsApp me on that number, 1473-415-4817. You can WhatsApp me on that number. You can call me on that number and give towards this program to keep it going, because it's important, very important that you give towards keeping it going, keeping it on air, keeping the thing, pumping. It's not easy, but the little that you give would go a long way. All right? So I want to wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be back with you tonight again on The Journey.